Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of this podcast. This is the second episode, so very excited for this one, although this one is definitely more of a heavy topic. It is really sad, but I just think this situation, this thing needs to be brought to more awareness, and so I just want to spread awareness using this podcast too. So, today's topic, if you have not already saw by the title, which I'm sure you have, is the crisis that animal shelters are facing right now, specifically in the United States. So, I'm gonna just go ahead and jump straight into this. I have a lot of things I want to talk about with this. I have notes, all my notes over here. So, we're just gonna jump straight in. Let's go ahead and talk about this crisis that I mentioned. So, animal shelters right now, and again, right, I will be specifically referring to the United States because that is where I live, and so I'm the most knowledgeable on stuff that's going on over here, and I just feel like I would not be able to know enough about what's happening in other countries. That would be a whole different story, but I can, of course, do more research on that. But, anyways, right now we're focusing on the United States. Just wanted to clarify that. Animal shelters are so packed right now, and there are so many different reasons for this, which I will get into in a sec. I also just wanted to say that I will be focusing mostly on dogs in this particular issue because, again, I'm most knowledgeable on that. I have a dog, and I just want to say that I'm not just thinking that it's just dogs. Of course, there's problems with cats and overcrowding over there and stuff like that. So I just wanted to again specify that I will be focusing on dogs because that is what I feel most confident talking about and what I feel like I know the most about. So, like I said, animal shelters are dealing with overcrowding issues a lot right now. And specifically right now, there are so many shelters who have to euthanize animals, euthanize dogs, unfortunately, because they simply do not have enough space for all the pets. So let's go ahead and jump into the reasons for this because these are very big. A huge reason for this is that there are not enough adoptions to keep up with the amount of dogs going into shelters. That basically just means that not enough people want to adopt dogs. And it's not that not a lot of people want to have a dog. The problem here is that not enough people want to adopt a dog because there is a clear difference between adopting and buying. So adopting a dog means that you are getting a dog from an animal shelter. Usually it does not cost a lot. A lot of times it's free too. So you are helping to rescue an animal. If you are buying a dog, that means you are buying most likely a puppy, so from a pet store, and some of those breeders are just not the greatest. Or you are buying a dog from a breeder. Now, I do not want to say that buying a dog from a breeder is bad. We got our dog from a breeder. And I want to just talk about that for a sec. So, a lot of times, people want a specific dog breed or a specific size of a dog or something like that. That's what happened with us. We wanted a small dog, and we could really only get a small dog. And my mom just did not want to get a dog that shed, so we wanted to get a small dog that didn't shed. So we found a reputable breeder, and we went to her and we got the puppy, right? So make sure if you're going to get a dog from a breeder, make sure you find a good breeder. They need to be licensed. Please make sure that you find a good breeder. Anyways, that is why we chose to buy. I think if we wanted a big dog, we would definitely have went to a shelter. But the problem is that a lot of dogs in shelters are bigger breeds. And so people who obviously want a small breed want to go buy one because, first of all, I guess the puppies are really cute and that's an incentive, as well as there are just not a lot of smaller dogs in animal shelters compared to bigger dogs. So people typically go seek out breeders. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with buying from a really good breeder, but I do think that if you have the option to adopt and if you are looking for a big dog and if there is a breed that you want in the shelter and you really have the choice to adopt and you're trying to choose, adoption is of course better, but if there is just not the breed that you can get, of course, just make sure to get a good breeder. So again, I'm not hating on breeders or anything like that, because of course I got my dog from a breeder, but I'm just saying that if you can adopt, definitely adopt. I know when I get my own house, I will definitely adopt a dog because I want a bigger dog. Yeah, that's the whole thing on adopting and breeding. And that's the first reason, like I said, there are not enough adoptions to keep up with the amount of dogs that are constantly being sent into these shelters. There are so many reasons for this. Like I mentioned already, I keep on like rambling on, getting off topic, but again, people either choose to buy, or a lot of people just can't get a dog, or they don't want a dog, which is totally understandable. But there's also the problem, which I'll get into a sec, in that people just cannot get a dog and cannot afford a dog. A big problem is that there are increasing costs for dog food and for vets and things like that, which some people have a hard time affording or they cannot afford, which of course makes the number of people who can adopt, that makes that pool smaller. So because of these increasing costs, people don't want to buy a dog. People can't buy a dog even if they want one. A lot of housing issues also contribute to this decrease in adoptions, because in the US, there's prices for housing is going higher, not enough housing. Some apartments or rentals are also just not pet friendly, which leaves people with the decision, or just forces people to not be able to get a dog. And because housing is a big issue, again, because it's so pricey, people are already spending so much money on that they cannot afford to spend more money on a dog, or they just can't get a dog because, again, maybe they might live in a rental or apartment, or maybe worst case scenario too is that they just don't have a house and they just cannot get a dog because they don't have a house. I mean, I'm not saying you can't get a dog without having a house. I mean, you can, but it might be a little harder to provide for them. And like I did mention, again, the increasing cost of pet care. So this can cause owners to have to choose between their pets and their other needs, because pet care is expensive, but people also have their own needs like housing, and they need to feed themselves, which is more important, of course, and they have to be able to afford all of their medicine and their doctor and their insurance and everything like that. And so sometimes they just have this impossible choice of, do I spend my money on my pet? Can I get a pet? I will have to like buy all of this stuff for them. I have to pay for the vet. I have to pay for medicine, for vet bills, whatever. It's expensive. And so there is that hard choice that people have to choose, which is completely understandable. And we can't really blame anybody for that, because a lot of times this is just something that people cannot really control. Again, pet owners just cannot afford to take, or I should say, just people in general, not pet owners, but people just can't afford to take care of and feed pets, or pet owners, if they already own a pet, they can't afford to take care of their pets, and so they have to give it to a shelter or rehome them, and there's just not enough adoptions because of that. I talked about adoption, breeding. Another thing is that there are not enough foster homes sometimes. Foster homes are super big. That's basically when somebody just takes in a dog or a cat or whatever animal for a temporary amount of time, and they just care for them. And this just opens up more space in shelters, more space for more animals to come in. So it really, really helps with the overcrowding problem. And again, with the housing issues and everything that's going on and the prices rising, people just can't even afford to foster, which is again understandable, but it just, all of these things, they keep piling on top of one another and creating this bigger and bigger issue, and they just keep making the issue bigger, and they keep making overcrowding continue to, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, basically they just keep causing overcrowding and even more overcrowding. So it's like a domino effect. Another problem, there's so many problems here, but there is a lack of spaying and neutering too. And if you do not know what that is, that's basically when you do like a surgery. Spaying is for female dogs and the neutering is for male dogs, but it just takes away their ability to have kids. And this causes, of course, more puppies or kittens to be born. Again, contributing to more animals that need homes, especially if it's a stray or somebody had to just abandon their dog or someone just was careless with their dog. Is just a whole domino effect. Like I said again, it just leads to more animals needing homes, and people can't get those, or people can't afford to take those animals in, so shelters have to, but they're running out of space. It's just really sad, and not enough space in shelters can lead to euthanization of animals, and that is just so heartbreaking. Every time I think about this, I just really want to cry. It ruins my whole day sometimes, but you have to think about the bright side of everybody trying to solve this issue and what you can do to help. Before considering buying a dog, think about whether, or adopting, I should say, think about whether it is possible at all to adopt, because that will be another dog who is living in a home and will be happy and loved, and it will just help again free up more space for other dogs to go in and then hopefully get adopted. Adopting a dog is definitely the best choice here, but again, not everybody can adopt. So I will talk about things that you can do to help at the end of this episode, but for now, just know that adopting is such a great option, and you don't need to commit to a dog to help out. Fostering is a great option too. Again, I will talk about this later at the end of the video, but just know that that is another option. So now let's go ahead and talk about conditions at animal shelters. What is it like for the pets living there? What is it like for the dogs? So because of this horrible overcrowding in animal shelters now, which is a huge problem all over the country, there is, of course, a decreased quality of living for the dogs, as, of course, with anywhere where there's like overcrowding, because they are more cramped. And, of course, they a lot of times have to share kennels with other dogs and making it more cramped, and it's just not great for the dogs who need also some personal space, and they need time to themselves, and they need attention and care and love. There's also poor sanitation as well with overcrowding. Overcrowding is just, it just leads to so many things. Again, like I said, it's like a domino effect. There's just all of this just keeps piling on top of one another. It just makes everything worse, I guess. But I'm not blaming anybody here. This is just the way things are, but there is ways to help. So, oh my gosh, I keep getting off track. I'm so sorry. But I was saying poor sanitation, not enough vet care, and vet care again, so expensive too. And so not all animal shelters can afford to get vets for all of their dogs, and they can't treat injuries and stuff. So a lot of these dogs and strays, especially coming in from the street, are carrying diseases. They're carrying injuries. They have injuries, and these animal shelters can't treat these dogs, and then these diseases can spread to other dogs, and is just this whole ordeal, and a lot of poor sanitation. So that, of course, just leads to bad conditions in general at animal shelters. Now, there are a lot of animal shelters who do care about their dogs and animals, and they do try and create the best possible conditions, but sometimes this is just very difficult because there are factors here that you cannot control. You cannot control not having enough money to afford a vet, because you can try so hard to raise money and you might still not have enough. You can try so hard to do anything, but there's just so many factors that go into it that a lot of times is just very difficult and not even possible sometimes to create these ideal conditions. But a lot of shelters, again, do really try though. So you can find a lot of these shelters by searching good quality shelters near you, looking at reviews, looking at articles about them, making sure that they are good. Of course, with every good side, there's also a bad side, and there are shelters as well who do not care that much for the animals. Some shelters do not kill animals, which is great. No-kill shelters are great. But because of this, some shelters only try and accept nicer looking animals or pure breeds that will get adopted more easily. I got this information off of the PETA website, by the way. And this forces dogs who are injured or have other problems and are not, I guess, desirable in quotation marks. They have to live inside other shelters, contribute to more overcrowding, and a lot of times, sadly, live their lives without enough attention or care, like exercise and stimulation. That is, of course, not great living conditions. It's not good for the dogs, and it's really sad, but that's just the way things are. That's just the way things work, unfortunately, but hopefully we can do something to change that. Disclaimer though, this is not all animal shelters. Most animal shelters really do care about their pets. They try and take every pet in regardless. So I'm just talking about a small percentage here. I think I pretty much went over all of the things that I want to talk about the conditions of animal shelters and why they're so overcrowded. Sorry for if I ramble on a lot because I do tend to get off topic. Now let's move on a little bit into more positive area because I know this was a little sad and heavy, but how can you help? So there are so many ways to help, some of which I have already mentioned, but you don't even need money to do some of these. So these are just going to be the 4 most common ways to help and something that most people can do. I will just list those off and give some information about them. The first one is, of course, this is obvious, and most of these are kind of obvious, but it's to adopt. Adopting is crucial to keeping animal shelters from overflowing. There are so many different breeds and ages in shelters, so there is a good chance you will find a dog who you really connect with and love. Even if you are thinking about breeding, I just urge you, or not breeding, sorry, buying from a breeder. It doesn't really hurt to go to a shelter and just see if there's a dog that maybe you really want there. I just really urge you to do that. Look around your local shelters first, right? And look around or ask people if they know of any fosters too. You can get from somebody who's fostering a dog, and there is always a dog who needs a loving home. So again, just to summarize, adoption, that's, I guess, the biggest way you can help. It takes the pressure off. It opens one more space for another dog to come in, and a dog who's been locked up in a kennel will finally get a home, will finally get love from a family. And it's just so, so nice to see people adopt dogs. And it's just so heartwarming to see reactions of dogs when they get adopted. It's just, I love seeing that because it just makes me so happy. The second thing is fostering. So fostering is something else that you can do, but without having to commit to adopting and owning a dog full time. So fostering, it can really range. I think different shelters have different policies and whatnot. I'm not really sure about the specifics of how this works, but basically you just keep a dog for a temporary amount of time and you care for them, and you also hopefully will put in a lot of effort into trying to find that dog a home. So just asking people or asking your friends if they know somebody who might want to adopt a dog, or if they obviously want to adopt a dog, just somebody who might be interested in adopting a dog. That is just so helpful to these shelters, so helpful to helping out shelters. Again, it just frees up space, and it's really nice for a dog to have a foster home because it can help the dog acclimate to home life, making it more easier for somebody who wants an easier transition into getting a dog, and they don't want a dog just from a kennel. They want somebody a little bit more house trained. And there's, of course, always the possibility that you might fall in love with the dog that you're fostering and would want to adopt it. So number 3 is donating. Again, very obvious, but money can really make all the difference in shelters. It can help them afford more toys, food, and vet care, as well as hire more workers. Even a small donation could add up, honestly. $5, $10, whatever, it all adds up, I promise, especially if a lot of people donate a small amount. That can add up really quickly. You don't have to donate money either. You can also donate other things like food, toys, dog beds, as long as they are in good condition, decent condition, new, whatever. Different shelters have different policies on these things, so make sure to just check the rules and regulations, or call them. If you have a dog yourself, you could donate some old items that are in good condition. Toys, dog beds, again, like I said, great way to declutter your house as well as help out the shelter. It's just so nice. I want to donate some of my dog's things. So yeah. And number 4 is volunteering. Volunteering is so helpful because it helps give the dogs extra attention and love, and exercise too if you can walk them. This is, of course, free. So it's a great way to help without spending any money. Plus, it's also really great if you're a teenager and need service hours. Like, I know I should probably get some more service hours, but the only problem here is that some shelters require you to be 18 or above to volunteer without a parent. So make sure to check the rules and things like that. But again, a great way to get service hours. And honestly, if you just like work on the weekends, you could probably get a lot. And that looks great for colleges. Volunteer work is really great, again, if you have the time, because it really relieves the pressure off of animal shelter workers and benefits the dogs or cats or whoever you work with, maybe both. So those are the main ways to help out, but of course there are more ways, like working at a shelter possibly, right? But not everyone can really do that. That's like a whole different thing. But these are the easiest things that most people can do. These are the most common. These are the things that hopefully everyone can do. Again, I know that some people can't, but most people, right? I think that the crisis with animal shelters right now does need to be brought more attention. And I personally would actually really like to create a fundraiser for this purpose. But this is a new podcast, so I don't have enough listeners to do that yet. But if this specific one does, or this episode does get more listeners, make sure to comment because this will be on YouTube too at Ruby the Havanese. That's the channel name. Make sure to comment if you are on YouTube and let me know if I should do a fundraiser for this. Like, if I get enough of an audience to do this, I will, of course, put it up. Again, we can all help out, even in really small ways. It all helps, it all adds up. So I really encourage taking some time to think about what you can do to help. Thank you so much for listening and stay tuned for the I cannot talk today. For the next episode. Bye.